Welcome to the Tyler Dickerhoof Show. Newswire. Today on the Newswire, man, producer and Alex and I are going to go through a lot. Most importantly, where we are in the world. We have tariffs. We have the stock market meltdown. We have people losing their minds. We're going to talk about that. Talk about more. Alex, how we doing?
I'm doing great. Market meltdown, market crash. Are the banks going to default? I mean, what is going on? Similar feelings of 2008 and other crashes. What do they call that? Black Monday of 1987.
All right. I had a buddy ask me this morning. He goes, and I'm going to read his exact comment because it leads into kind of the conversation you and I were having in preparation for today over the weekend. And he said, is this just a big game of chicken? So that led us into a conversation. It reminded me of what I was doing in 07, 08, and 09 and how different things were then. And I shared this with you. This isn't verified. This is Twitter. This is X verified for what it is. And it said that, and I believe this wholly based upon kind of what I've seen in the market and just understanding how people play in the stock market, those who are invested in the stock market. And the comment that I read is 10% of the population owns the top 50% of value in the stock market. 10% of people own 50% of the value. Okay. The next 50% is owned by the next 40% of, and I think we could capitalize this as net worth valuation. Mm-hmm. The bottom 50% of our society, this is meaningless. It's kind of like going through a casino and there's all the people on the penny slots, right? The penny slots, right? The nickel slots, the penny slots. Yeah. There's all those people. And then you go to the high roller tables. Does the casino care about the penny slots? Nope. Does not matter. It is just something to give people the walk in the door. Who determines everything for a casino? The whales. So what we're looking at, in my opinion, is we're seeing all the greedy whales lose all their blubber. That's what's happening. You have this because fundamentally we can say what has changed? Well, we've instituted tariffs. Okay, great. Well, as of last report, 50 countries on the list have come and said, how do we negotiate? Win. Capital W-I and Charlie Sheen winning. Like, can I stress that anymore? That's what the entire thing was. I heard this as well. This was on one of the Meet the Press over the weekend. I don't know who the person was. I can't give them credit. And they were talking about all of the Chinese tariffs, like 34%, 20 some percent, whatever it is, Chinese tariffs. You know what that equates to a true consumer increase in cost?
I do not.
0.7 cents. 0.7 cents. We have thousands of supported protests over the weekend. Supported because there were people that were identified as funding them.
Soros?
That's the name being thrown around. Again, X verified. To complain about what? Fuel prices are down. All the things that we need to happen in this country in regard to a greater rebalancing of finances is going on. One of the things that you brought up and you said, Tyler, what about real estate? I'm like, well, until we see real estate values bottom out, meaning I bought a house for $400,000 2 weeks ago, and now it's worth $250,000. Okay, until we see that happen, nothing's happening.
And you might see that regionally, right?
No, well, I'm saying if you bought a house, say for example, you bought a house in Florida last week where you live, and you paid $400,000 for it last week.
Mhm.
What's that probably worth today? Again, 2 weeks. We're talking not month, 2 weeks. If you
Something
bought a
close
house
to
2 weeks
the same.
ago for 400, exactly.
Yeah.
It's worth the same. If anything, you now have more available buyers to buy that same house because interest rates are finally starting to drop.
Mhm.
The interest rates for mortgage loans has been much higher than what the prime rate plus has been because they've kept it high. Here's the other thing that I shared with my buddy as a perspective. What we're seeing going on in the stock market is gamblers' greed. It's evidence because of the liquidation that doesn't really have anything to do. It does, but it doesn't. It doesn't have anything to exactly coincide with cost of production. Okay, so say, for example, like Restoration Hardware last week, they came out, you were watching it with the CEO, and he goes, oh, when he just sees things fall apart because of their earnings. And they said a great majority of their products come from Vietnam. Well, they're already in play to figure out how do we make this work. I go back to a conversation when I was speaking at an event back at the end of January, and that's when the tariffs were first, kind of thrown around with Canada, and they're like, all right, we got to do a lot of work, but at the end of the day, it didn't really change things because they already had stuff in the pipeline. It was kind of more like, how does this play out? So we go back to Restoration Hardware, and today, if you walk into a Restoration Hardware, are prices that they have posted 30% higher than what they were last week? Most likely no. And at the same point, if they're watching and they're doing and they're making decisions, is their cost of production 30% higher than it was last week? Most likely no. Most likely no. Yeah. So we can look at the stock market and say, okay, a $10,000 off its high, a 18% reduction. Has that changed the fundamental dynamics of production for companies? No. But this is what I experienced back in 07 and 08. Most notably 08. We saw corn prices hit $7 a bushel. That was more than 200% of a normal typical price. So we saw corn over a matter of 2 years go from $3.50 a bushel to $7 a bushel, double in price. We've seen the stock market go from roughly 30 couple thousand to 46,000. What was a lot of that, corn price driven by? Well, it was driven by some fundamental factors. You had your normal weather supply, you had China buying, not buying, but a big part of it had to do with massive speculation. And so all of a sudden we saw corn price in July hit $7 a bushel. You know what it was for? And so if you were a dairy farm, you were a feedlot, you were a chicken house, you were a pork house, and you had to buy corn, you paid $7 a bushel for it. And then in 2 months' time, you know how much that price of corn was?
How much?
$3.50 a bushel. Dropped in half. Half. Now, here's the double whammy. Not only did you see that massive volatility driven by speculation like we're seeing right now in the stock market, but you also saw, hey, what I could sell a pound of pork for, what I could sell 100 pounds of milk for, did that same thing. So I bought high-priced corn, and then I got absolutely obliterated because the price that I could sell it for fell out of the sky.
Yeah.
You went from having, I can make pretty good money this year, to I'm committing suicide because I'm so far in the hole that 3 generations from now may not be able to even have a lifestyle. That's what happened in 07, 08 in the commodity markets. We don't have that happening today. We haven't seen the price of steel go from, crazy. We haven't seen the price of oil, like it's changed, but it's come back down to where every consumer is going to be better off. And so when I look at this today, the stock market is, when you have Warren Buffett who is just sitting there saying, let it go, rebalance this sucker.
Yeah. And I spend a lot of time paying attention to what's going on in the markets and all sorts of markets. It's fun. It's interesting. It's good to have knowledge and educate yourself on these things. But I don't know if you noticed it this morning. It was maybe about 2 or 3 hours ago. I don't know if you were paying attention, but there was a fake news. AP had put out
Fake
that
news.
90. Well, that's what the White House said. They literally said fake news, fake news. But the AP had said that 90-day pause on all tariffs, and
look at that.
The market went boom up like for about 20 minutes. I don't know if you saw this happen.
No.
It shot up like crazy. And then it came out like 20, 30 minutes later, White House, fake news, we are not making changes in the market.
So that even more establishes this thing is 100% based on massive speculators, gamblers, manipulation. And here's the thing that's so interesting is, and I referenced this to a friend of mine as we were talking earlier, is if we go back a couple years ago when we had the GameStop deal, right? You remember that when all of a sudden everyone decided to jump into GameStop? Well, it took a concerted effort with a lot of people to make that happen. The commodity markets, because it's so thinly, there's not a lot there. One guy determined if 5 industries would be profitable or bankrupt because of the amount of money that they poured into. And it didn't happen that way, but it could. One guy who's trading in Wall Street right now, who's managing a hedge fund today that's playing around in all these different stocks, has enough liquid volume to absolutely upend the entire food industry of this country. We saw bits and pieces of that in 2008. That's what's finally going on in the stock market. And it, to me, is comical.
Yeah.
Comical that everyone is, it's worse than Chicken Little, the sky is falling. You would think there was did you watch the show Paradise? Did you watch that at all?
No.
It was new this fall. And it was last fall, this winter, something like that. I don't know when it came out. And it was about, essentially, there was this earthquake in Antarctica that caused this massive tsunami that ended up reaching like 200 feet in height and like wiped out most of the earth. And so they ended up building this little commune inside of a mountain in Colorado for 25,000 people. Then they come and find out, and I've ruined the show for anyone who hasn't watched it, but it is what it is. Then they find out, it's kind of like Lost, right? You find out that it's all this big hoax.
Yeah.
Is that people still survive.
Yeah.
Oh, guess what? People are still surviving today. The plumber who is doing the plumbing in a house to be sold still got a job.
Let's talk about leaky pipes for a minute.
Okay. You got some leaky pipes? Sounds like a personal problem, Alex. I mean, might want to get that checked out. You get to your 40s and that stuff happens.
Let's talk about leaky pipes. Let's talk about the leaky. It's a question for you more so. In the other crashes previously, it was typically like we saw Lehman Brothers, all these institutes like crash and burn and go bankrupt, basically.
Alex, I'm just going to go ahead and do this. Could you maybe try to turn on your other mic? There's a little echo. I know we're live. Just roll with it. It says that you're using your iMac instead of your Shure microphone. So just maybe talk that. I mean, just hey, we're just rolling with it today. We're live. We had some camera issues. For some reason, my camera did not want to play nice with my microphone. If you see a lag, I don't know what it is. We changed cameras. We changed software.
This is live TV. I cannot change.
All right, it won't let you change while we're recording. All right, that's fine.
So,
it's good to know. You can just set that to the side. We don't need that thing. We're just using microphone off the computer. It is what it is.
It is.
It establishes how great you sound when we have a Shure microphone.
I
They're
know.
good. This
You
is
know
not
what?
a plug for Shure microphones, but if Shure wants to sponsor the show, they gladly can. They're great microphones.
You know, we were so excited to just talk today. We didn't
About
even
leaky
check
pipes?
our mics. But I was going to ask. We're talking about leaky pipes and the other crashes and other major. Yeah, let's just call it crashes and days like today where this Chicken Little sky is falling. Do you see like weakness in the banking? Like, is there a sector that is weakened and that will get like from these players, like you mentioned, these hedge fund guys that can crush it?
Oh, if there's a space to be careful about, it is all the, I would say, professional money that will throw at companies. But here's my take on that. There's a few here locally, and you know about them because they want you to know about them.
Right.
In other words, the guy who's like, I'm the angel and I'm going to throw all this money, kind of like imagine like there are so many people that could be on Shark Tank that are phenomenal investors and like help people go. But you have the celebrities, and there are those celebrities. Some of those celebrities are absolutely crying in their Cheerios today.
Yeah.
Okay. But, as some of my financial advisors, my friends, we've anticipated this. You can't have a bull run that crazy for that long without some type of reset. And it's healthy. It is natural. You don't take for a moment that I'm thinking that Trump will get something wrong in this. And he even admitted so over the last, months, like we're not going to get it perfect. We're not. You know what?
Well,
I give a lot of credence to that as opposed to somebody, we have the perfect plan and it will go off and it will be perfect. Everything is awesome. Everything is awesome. Everything is awesome. It's like my credit card debt is higher than ever. Everything is awesome. I'm paying, $4 a gallon for gas. I'm paying $9 for a dozen and a half eggs. Well, life is awesome. The stock market is the highest ever. Like, I feel like I'm getting screwed and everyone telling me, no, you're having the best day ever. At least we're not having that.
yeah, I agree. I mean, it is. I mean, we're just speculating here, right? We're giving our thoughts and our
I'm
opinions.
not a financial advisor. I have no series, so whatever.
It's but I do. As much as there are people that have worked for many years with 401ks and pensions, where this does affect them.
Yeah, like I mean, I think about, we talked a bit about that is, hey, I was, in 2008, I was 29. I had 2 kids, my own business. I lost 25% of my income in one day because of what I just told you, because we saw volatility absolutely borderline bankrupt businesses.
Yeah. And in a lot of cases, they did.
Companies aren't going bankrupt because of the stock market.
They're stronger now than they were.
Like the stock market is if you look at it, a leverage capacity of what's the company worth. For example, Apple today is not going bankrupt because they lost, whatever percent of value from their stock. They still have product to sell. Are they investigating, man, all right, what does it take for our products? Do we need to sharpen but they see if they make $90 on a iPhone, or maybe today they make 88. Okay. We're not talking about massive amounts because of that collective, those are just speculative numbers, but we're not talking about an absolute massive, we're talking about the stock market.
Yeah.
The stock market is not being driven because we just had a jobs report that said we lost 300,000 jobs. No, we had a jobs report that came out and said we added 270,000 jobs to non-governmental places. Man, that's really healthy. That's really good. We have a very tight housing market that, yes, there could be an opportunity for that to leak a little bit, but there's so much demand. If it leaks a little bit because interest rates are a little bit lower, all of a sudden we may have more transactions.
Yeah.
Okay. Absolutely. Like all of a sudden the cost of these steers, which was 100% more when I bought these a week ago.
Hold on, Tyler. You got new cows. You got new cows.
They're out there. They hide.
I saw them on Instagram. If you check out Tyler's Instagram.
Yeah, they're here somewhere. They're here somewhere. What it cost me to buy those was double what it was 4 years ago.
Double.
Well, I know today if I go to the market, it's probably not going to be 50% of what I paid for them. Why? Because we are very short cattle. There's not enough cows to produce because of things that have happened the last 4 or 5 years, those true fundamentals. And so unless all of a sudden, we had this massive explosion of cattle, or, we talked with my friend Aaron about the bird flu. Like, we're short on birds. That's why we have an egg problem. Like, we don't have since then we could probably have more chickens. Chickens happen quick. 6
Chickens a little quicker.
Cows takes, years.
Takes time.
But with all those things held, it's like, man, just grab your popcorn and watch all the people that you can tell the people who, thought this was going to go to the moon. The people that invested in $100,000 Bitcoin and said, I'm riding this sucker to 200,000. Hey, I hate to tell you, Bitcoin over the last year is up 6%. Okay.
Yeah.
The stock market, even where it's at, over a 4-year period, we're still up 8-9%. Oh, well, it just shows how crazy it was just since the fall election. Our stock market is the dollar index is right back to what it was pre-election. The US dollar is no weaker today than it was the day before our last presidential election.
Yeah.
Take a breath.
Well, let's talk about tariffs. Let's go back to tariffs real quick, because every media, whether it's Fox Business, CNBC, all the major financial networks, all the talk is around tariffs. Tariffs have been around since the 1960s, to my knowledge.
Well, yeah, I mean, keep going, because that's hilarious.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like everybody's leading with the tariff talk, the negotiations, and who's coming to the table, who's not, how it's, and then, the markets are tanking because of the tariffs. It's all because of President Donald Trump's tariffs. And
it's all him. It's all Donald.
There's no clarity.
It's all about the Donald.
And yeah. And so can you educate us a little bit about, and I don't know, maybe you can, maybe you can't.
I'm an observer by education. I think what's interesting is this isn't new. The Congress members over the last 20 years, like some of these most staunch opponents of Donald Trump have been preaching, we have to balance trade, we have to use tariffs. I mean, it's been documented in so many videos, and it's not AI deepfakes. It's legit videos for years. Our tariffs are out of whack. Our tariffs are out of whack. Our tariffs are out of whack. And all of a sudden, somebody is bold enough as president to not kind of play to the political game of power and say, yeah, they're out of whack. Let's fix it. And now all of a sudden they're like, oh, you're going to ruin our whatever.
Stock market.
Well, I don't. But here's the thing is, it's so interesting. And this is what's different. And somebody shared this with me. Some of the largest holders, and this goes back to that 10%. The largest holders are one side party aligned. It's really interesting that you look at some of the biggest money holders in our country, and a lot of them have been party aligned. And now all of a sudden that party is saying, oh, this is the end of the world. And it's like, well, and I don't want to make this, party aligned political. Don't catch that. Like, I want you can call it this way. I want the opportunity for myself and my kids and those around me to be just as good over the next 3, 4, 5 years as what it ever has been. Well, what does that take? Hey, sometimes you got to take a bitter pill and, swallow it. I know that's an exact word essentially of Trump, but give me a better explanation of, There are things that are broken economically because we went through this last week. Our, median income is higher than ever, but so are our expenses and so is our debt level. Those two can't go hand in hand for prosperity. If all of a sudden our debt level was the lowest ever and our income level was the highest ever, man, that's great. But when those two are rising accordingly in tandem, that's not healthy.
Yeah.
I wrote this last week. I posted it on Threads. It was a moment of, I get everyone's these moments of, my buddies joke with me that I am very good at analogies. I even have a friend who's starting to rate my analogies on a scale of 1 to 10. It's kind of a fun little thing. And this is what I wrote. A society built upon consumerism. A society built on consumerism will die from gluttony. Stop and think about that. A society built on consumerism. What have we become? A society that can go to Amazon and buy whatever you want. Oh, what did you create to offset that? Well, no, I just went and bought it.
I agree. I was going to kind of on the philosophical, note.
Sure.
I agree. I feel that as a society as a whole, between the effects of social media to a certain degree and that extent of materialism, consumerism, things and objects of desire, whether it be handbags or cars or the fancy homes, what have you, have been as part of this cycle of gluttony. I'll use your word. Where we're seeing the credit card debts and all this spending on you deserve, right? It's like you deserve it.
There's a bit of entitlement for sure.
Entitlement, ego that maybe you're getting some sort of reality check of, hey, we can't continue going on of spend, go. We need a debt. If we continue down that path, the debt just continues to rise. What needs to happen is some sort of change. We can't have just continue to print money and increase our debt levels, right? Like, what fundamentally needs to change? And I think that's kind of like one of the things with this new regime is that you're seeing for the first time, maybe in many years, something different, something that's trying to, hey, Tyler, let me ask you this question. If Doge doesn't occur, if we're not trying to tackle this debt crisis, and we just continue down the same path of printing and spending, where does that lead us? Like, what are the two paths that you can potentially go down?
Well, I mean, from what global economics I understand, that leads us to what much of Europe has experienced the last 50 or so years. There's some anthropological information that says, when you move from a society of production into service, your society's dying. And we've seen that the great Roman Empire, those things, those changes, when all of a sudden the greater society is, constructionism, building, creating is below me. Instead, I want to be a consumer, or I want to be in the service industry rather than creation. It's the downfall of the society. And that's been, for millennia. Maybe I don't have those exact words. I'm not an anthropological. I took one class of anthropology. I liked it. It was fun. I did pass the class, unlike my econ and psych, classes. But we've seen that play out, and it's like that's the risk we run. Do we fall into that where we're going to just consume, and the only way to get out of it is to go bankrupt? Because you're not creating something of intrinsic value otherwise. Because services are of value, yes, until they have no value because there's no one to serve. And, as we see this changing age population, I mentioned this last week. I saw we were talking about different things. We are in a massive career reshuffling. It's kind of cool to see. And it's being done because we went from a lot of these services. All right, let's all get into services and, the industries of services to like, oh, well, can you actually do something of creation? And I think that's what's going on. You're seeing that with, the graduating classes of saying, man, you want to go make money, get into build something. Be able to create from nothing, man, there's a service aspect of it, and those are certain places. But the worst thing, I was talking to someone last week, and they were talking about getting their a graduate degree. They wanted to get a new degree and a different, I would say, career path. I'm like, well, what do you want to do with it? Well, I'm not sure yet. Yeah, that's a really dangerous place to be. Instead of, what does our society need? What does it need? What am I passionate about? What can I do? Now, do I need to get additional skills or abilities to do that? And that's a pathway forward that we haven't done for a generation. Mm-hmm. Instead, we've like, you'll be valuable if you go do XYZ. Well, why? Oh, because, that's just way better for you to do. You'll be more valuable to society if you go to college and get a business degree. Well, what am I going to do with it? Well, you'll have that degree. It'll be worth something. Like, why? Well, because it's from a great institution. You have a great network. I'm like, but why? Well, then you go into business. Like, you don't know anything about business. I have to train you for everything. You just wasted 4 years and $100+ grand. This is dumb and sucks, as opposed to, I want to get into business. All right. Well, I like to do work with my hands. Great. Well, what kind of works? Like, I want to do,
carpentry.
Yeah. Okay, great. Do you see yourself doing that forever? No, but I enjoy it for now. Maybe I'll start a carpentry business. Okay, great. Get started, learn the trade, and as you go through, be willing to find mentors, maybe take some classes on the side, maybe realize that, hey, I don't know what I need to know, and so go then get that education so you can go back and do what you know you need to do because you've already decided, I like being in this business. I can add value to this industry, as opposed to have this degree and then realize you don't know anything.
Tyler, we should do a whole nother video on the whole education system in this country, but it would take.
I think we've talked about it a few times enough.
I know,
but I think that's where, when we look at today, in my viewpoint, have fundamentals drastically changed in the world? No, but here's the thing I know. If this causes, these major speculative industries to have to do some margin calls and they're screwed, yeah, that's going to have a ripple effect. Right? Don't maybe listen and think that this isn't going to have an impact. Hey, you take that many trillions dollars out of equity.
Trillions.
Yes, it's going to have an impact. But it's also kind of like, where's it coming from? And you mentioned this earlier. When you think about my parents, your parents, who retirement age and some of what they live off of is based upon the stock market to a grand extent. It's like, yeah, it's difficult. But I also look at it this way. We've seen the stock market go, and I could put the exact numbers up here just as an aside. If we look at the Dow, for example, and if I go to the 6-month number, or let's go 1 year number,
right?
We are right now where we're at today is within spitting distance of April of 2024, a year ago.
Yeah.
So we've seen a run up from, we'll call it greater 37,000 to a peak of around 45,000 and change. We've seen that run up and come back down.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now.
In a year's time, you are where you were a year ago.
In that sense.
You are where you were a year ago. You are where you were a year ago. Let me iterate that. You are where you were a year ago.
Tyler, we're going to see the videos.
Yeah. Does that suck? Yeah, I've been there. But it's also, you are where you were a year ago. Like, it's not like.
Can Tal, let me ask you a question. I know, so one of the things that the president keeps iterating to Jerome Powell is rate cuts, rate cuts, rate cuts. Why is that so important?
Well, I mean, I look at it just from what I understand. When you look at the cost of doing business, the difference between a 7% rate and a 4% rate could be all of your profit. And that is the amount of money that you need to have to service debt can be the exact difference for some businesses. It's that lean at times. That can be what it takes to make sure, oh, I can make this deal swing. If you also look at the amount of capital that you need to reinvest, to build, to add jobs, that can be the difference. Hey, can I go out and expand my business? Well, you're going to have to borrow money at 7 to 8 to 9% plus. Okay, that makes it tough. It's like, oh, but you can have, say, for example, you have $5,000 to service debt, real small number, but all of a sudden that drops to $3,000. That $2,000 difference may be the exact number it takes. I can be in business or not. And so I look at it as, and pundits have shared this. Where have we gotten into trouble in the U.S.? Well, I look at different states more than others. I look at the West Coast, live here. I've lived on the West Coast for 25 years. What has West Coast done to make business extremely difficult? Massive amounts of regulation, massive amounts of taxes. And so those two things make business very, very, very difficult in the West Coast. And so when you think about competing in other parts of the country, much less the other countries, it takes twice as much work, both capital and effort, to accomplish the same thing that maybe you can do simply because of excessive regulation and, taxes. We saw that in Florida and California. The regulations building and everything else is like, were those absolutely necessary? No, but, we had to justify jobs. And I'm very being tongue-in-cheek, but when you look at how heavy administratively places have gotten, I look at something here. 8 years ago, we built a commercial building. We, at that point, owned a gym. We looked at building a gym. And we wanted to get it done, as fast as we could. We had the capital available. We had the builder available. And the entire deal got put off for about 2 months simply because the planning department to approve the designs just didn't care. Like we'd send them in something for a plan. They would come back and review it and say, oh, you need to change X, Y, Z. It's like, okay, we'll change that. And they're like, well, we don't have a meeting with you for 2 weeks. Well, why can't we have a meeting faster? Oh, that's just what we do. And, I had a friend that worked in the office. Like, yeah, we don't that's just the thing. We push it out and we push it out and we push it out, as opposed to how fast can we get you up and running? Because we know that you up and running is going to bring jobs, revenue, tax revenue, business revenue, all those things. And, that has been ongoing now for more than a decade. And it's why, part of the real estate in this area is so stagnant, because there's not a lot of development. So it's kind of a good thing, but bad thing. And you've seen this very stagnant pace. And again, there are people in administrative industries that just don't care. Do not care. I'm not looking at how efficient can I be. And when you look at a situation like Doge, all right, you can think bad about it. You and I've talked about this. Yeah. Sometimes you have clients who are like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, tell me what you're doing for me, because I don't see you doing anything. And it's your job as a service provider to say, this is what I've done for you. I like it. Don't like it. Great. So to think that is unprecedented in the world of business to happen governmentally, shame on you that you don't know what the real world is like.
It feels to me that some of that's laziness, right? They're stuck. They've been in this monotonous cycle of laziness because they could get away with it.
Yeah. Or
And
it's
no one's
the
checked them. There was no checks and balances. Like, what are they doing? This doesn't seem efficient. Oh yeah, this is what we do.
have you ever worked in a job? I can remember. I can't remember which one it was, but I remember having this experience. And for example, on Saturday, I had a bunch of landscaping stuff to do, house around, and I think I did 36,000 steps.
Mm.
Okay, I didn't really think that much. It's like it was actually kind of a slow day for like what I think like of my life, what it would look like. And I remember at times people telling me is, hey, dude, slow down. If you keep working like this, they're going to expect that every day. And, it's in those essences like, yeah, I can be that. Like, I have a friend who was telling me this is difficulty. They could get their job done in a day, and it was like not abnormal, but it was supposed to be the work for a week. And essentially was like, hey, quit working so hard and so fast. You're disrupting the system. And yet that doesn't exist in businesses where your margins are tight and you have to find ways to be more profitable. But that exists where institutions and or leadership allow it.
Yeah, I have experience. It's funny when I the one that's coming to me is when I first got to Baylor to play football. That whole regime and the types of players that were there were very like, whoa, why are you getting in early? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing the extra work? And I was just like, why are you not? Like, it was, yeah. And the era of that time when I got there at the very beginning was very bad football. And then a whole regime change shifted that whole mindset.
And it don't get me wrong. Hey, it can go just as bad the other way. Let's just say there's a spectrum here. You can have the spectrum where I'm just mailing it in, or you can have the spectrum where you are, it's not good. I mean, there's a healthy middle, but it's also, As we wrap up, Alex, any last thoughts?
No, I think, listen, I see these times, relax, take a deep breath. I think it's opportunity.
We are where we were.
Yeah, we are where we were a year ago.
It doesn't mean tomorrow we're not going to be lower. I mean, we could, but, as I've shared with people, my friends, like, man, you and I have talked about this. Like, we got to let this play out. Like, we've had this many, it's not set in stone.
Yeah.
It's not set in stone. It's just allow the process to do. I mean, here's the reality. Socially, we're going through a detox.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I've never done it per se in like a addictive drug, but at the same point, I can recognize, that's what everyone is getting up in arms and screaming about because it's different. It's like the classic book who Alex has not read. You have it coming to you. Who Moved My Cheese is all of a sudden all the mice got up and realized they can't find the cheese.
No cheese. Last words. It's like, just take your time, deep breath. This too shall pass. It's not going to last forever. I think it's something that we need. And don't.
Here's the thing that I remember, and I go back to 07, 08. And when I was most concerned about when the market did this, and it happened to me, is because I wasn't prepared enough to understand that this happens. And if this is you and you're listening and you're watching, you're like, oh, Tyler, yeah, fine, but I don't agree. Like, understand, prepare yourself for things like this. Does it mean you need to be a doomsayer? Not at all. But to understand this can happen. And I think the great opportunity we talk about, whether it's a career, hey, the best thing that ever happened to me is I lost 25% of my income one day because it made me transform as a person. It made me find a career where I knew that I was better apt and suited to serve people. And it was painful and difficult? Absolutely. And that will happen through this. And, as it is a rainy day today and gloomy day here, that's happening. So all of this grows. And something great is going to happen from that growth. And it's like, it may be hard. It may be difficult. You may not align politically with the leaders. That's okay. But being, up in arms and like trying to put your head in the sand and saying they are the devil, that's not going to solve anything either. Be a light. Find an opportunity, see where there's a chance to learn, to grow, to find a different place. There is opportunity even in the midst of all of this, disdain. Are people going to lose their jobs? Yeah, probably. But you know what? I've been there and say there is a better place for you. Go find it instead of, thinking, oh no, this is the end of the world. So with that, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching both live on LinkedIn and Facebook this time. You can also watch the replay. Watch it again on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button as well as the bell to get notified for whenever we drop new content. Newswires on Monday, podcasts on Wednesday. Till next time. Ooh, it's really coming down. Ooh.
I see
Choose
it.
to lead with impact.